Hi there, my name is Belinda Dustin and a warm welcome to this week's episode on the I Ching Cafe for our weekly overview for the week commencing the 9th of March 2020. Well, last week we had an interesting week of retreat, getting out of situations that were negative for us, a whole lot of changing lines, and the outcome hexagram 51 shock. And I had a good chuckle that on Sunday, the last day of the cycle of last week's hexagram, that we had this massive thunderstorm over us and I could not actually record. And I thought, thunderbolts and lightning, and there it was actually in the physicality. So how did last week go? Were you able to withdraw yourself from situations that were no longer good for you, to take time out to recoup and to regenerate, and just to go back into the cave and take some rest time to really just regroup and rethink and prepare for the next phase of the journey? And this week we have quite an interesting week, and I really feel like these hexagrams and these weekly overviews really tell a story, a thread that runs through them. And this week we start the week with hexagram 63, called After Completion. And this hexagram is number 63, so it's not the last in the cycle, but it tells the story of once that completion is just about finished, like it's underway, it's in progress, it's kind of a done deal. Talks very directly to this idea of completion having taken place, of order, a place of order, a pivot point having already been reached. But we're not yet at the beginning of the cycle in number 1 and number 2. We're in that liminal space between something having been completed and the new cycle not yet started. So the wisdom of the I Ching says for us in our personal lives, in our business this week, something has been finished. And just give yourself a round of applause. Whatever the cycle is, whatever this big process is that you've been working towards, the cycle, the process has been finished. It's a big cycle of change that has come to an end. And we're just out of that process of tipping out of that end of the cycle and not yet in a beginning yet. We're in that liminal space. And the I Ching says what we do in that space, because order has been reached, there's a balance point, there's a culmination, there's a fullness. While we're in that little liminal space, as it were, that gap between completion and beginning, that is not the time we start lots of new things. So it's not a time for big enterprises, big undertakings, big shifts and changes where we want to push an agenda. No. This is about tweaking and just keeping everything in balance. So this week is just sit with the completion, sit with what is completing right now, what has perhaps already completed as we start off this week. And it's about tweaking and refining that position of completion. Because if we push too much in this interim phase where things are wobbly, order's been achieved and chaos wants to come in, new wants to come in. If we start meddling with this and start pushing forward on a new big adventure when we are not yet out of completion and into a beginning, we can get ourselves into quite a bit of difficulty. So just hang tight, be in that moment. Almost feel like when you're going on a roller coaster and you get to this point where you're like airborne and you're not yet falling back. That's the kind of feeling of like completion. We're kind of hovering in the middle of the air and it'll come back and we will then move on and accelerate down the other side of the roller coaster. So I hope you got that feeling of what this little space feels like. So we don't go and try and do dramatic things here. We just tweak and refine and go over what we're doing. So particular in business, for example, please, if you can, avoid getting into big new projects this week, starting big things. Rather go back over the things that you have completed, particularly recently or last week or now, and just tweak. Okay, so with that in mind, we have 3 changing lines this week. So last week was 4, it was hectic. And this week was still quite a lot of change, a lot of flow, a lot of momentum. And because this is quite a tricky hexagram, it's completion, it's great, but it's kind of like a interesting little bit in between. You're kind of in that little anti-gravity moment. The changing lines are a little challenging for us to work with, so let's get into them. Our first one is in the changing line position 3, and this talks about the story of one of the ancient emperors in China having completed a big expansion, having brought order to the nation and got everything organized and everyone's in their right places and everything's been brought together and there's this culmination and a completion. And then there's a bigger process of now expanding that nation to other territories, taking on other territories and going and create colonies, establishing a base. And in this particular story, the problem came because people in ruling positions who were tolerated barely were seen as fit to go and lead up colonies. Now, in colonization as a concept, besides the ramification of colonization for indigenous people, colonization often resulted in the bad boys, okay, it was always boys, the bad boys being sent off to go and start a colony because at least we've given you something to do and you're out of our hair. And so the idea with this changing line is a big project to undertake. There's this big process of completion that's finished. There's now a process of expansion, and just understand that you have a big undertaking, give it your all, but just pay attention to the people that you allocate to this expansion. Okay, so in business this week, perhaps for you in this changing line, what you're going to have to think about is just question the people you choose to help you expand. Just because someone is cheap or free or whatever the case may be in terms of a resource or a volunteer or a family member or a cousin or whatever, doesn't mean they're the right person to help you expand your business. And there's just a little, let's pay attention to this. We've reached a place of completion. We now want to expand what we've completed. Just bear that in mind. But above all that, just you're on a big undertaking. You're doing something important. So just give it care and attention. Put your head down. This is a long-term journey to complete. This is not a rush job. So the thing that's important to you, the thing that's working with you and through you at this time, your business or your personal life, a personal project, it's going to take time and it's a big undertaking, so it does take time. You know, great things take time. Just be careful about your team that you put around you to achieve that. Okay, so that's changing line 3. Changing line in the 5th position talks about this idea that it is tempting when you're working on something that's really important to you to see it as being small and insignificant. Look at this little thing that I have. It's just little. And I want to, instead of just bringing the little thing that I have and just accepting that right now it's a small little offering, is try and wrap a whole lot of stuff around it to make it look bigger and brighter than it is. And for us, this is an interesting changing line, particularly in business, is that if you feel, wherever you feel this week, that I've only got this little thing to offer, I've only got one product, I've only got one line, I've only got one service, I've only got this little thing that I can contribute, I feel insignificant because it's just one little thing. Where you feel that, just put your attention to this changing line, because what you've been cautioned against is doing what empty vessels do, which is create a whole lot of noise around something that is small, instead of just focusing on and getting on with the job. So don't worry about what people think, don't worry about what other people are doing, you know, what rappers and noise and rah-rahs that are being created around you. You've got this little precious little thing. Just be humble and accept that it's a small offering, and over time it becomes significant. So just hang in there. And then our last changing line in the 6th position is quite challenging, and it gives us this warning, and it's dire when you read it. You think, oh my goodness, I'm going to die. Okay, what it talks about is as you make this crossing, and the river is often a symbol of crossing and undertaking a challenge. You're crossing this river. As you're just completing this crossing or this river journey of ending, 2 things. It might be tempting to look back on the past difficulties you've just come through, that you've completed, and get caught up in, wow, we got through that, or wow, that was hectic, or wow, you know, look what we did, we got through. Because you're in a river, and the more time you spend looking back at the other bank, saying, gee, look at that monster that we left behind on the other bank, you're going to start sinking into the water, because you've got to keep treading to finish this little bit. And so what that's cautioning us to do is to not gloat on what we've got through, If you keep moving forward, you're going to get out of this danger. You're going to complete this process. So it's about being absolutely committed. Don't be Lot's wife and look back. Do not look back. Look only forward and keep moving forward. You can worry about celebrations of what you've overcome later. Just put in the effort of moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. Okay, that's going to prevent you from sinking down. The other thing is you might find in this crossing, in this completion process, like the I Ching says, there's angry ghosts that return to haunt you. That part of the challenge of this week is to let past negativity or past emotions, past experiences come back and swamp you under. So this is an emotional risk of feeling consumed by past issues and things that just come back to haunt you. So 2 things: keep moving forward, do not look back. And secondly is watch your emotional life this week. Watch your memories, your subconscious drives, your processes of what is the thing that might swamp you or make you feel overwhelmed in what you're trying to do in your business or in your team or for you in your personal life. Just watch that, because it's our own internal noise, our own internal baggage that is the thing that's causing risk for this week. So that's kind of the big change points for this week. And the outcome, or the relating or the transforming hexagram for this week, is hexagram 27, which is called Nourishment. And you can see from the image, it looks like a row of teeth in the top and a row of teeth in the bottom. It's an open mouth, okay? And it's like that little bird in the nest, calling for its mommy to have food put in there. This is an open mouth and tells the story of nourishment. What do we take in and what do we put out? Now, we often think of nourishment as, I've got to eat good food, quality food, organic food, fresh food, the right ingredients, all my vitamins and minerals. And for you this week, it might be about making sure you support completion that you're going through by good physical nourishment. Okay, so that might be what it is for you. Remember that physical nourishment is one aspect, and perhaps what comes out of our mouth is more important than what goes in. So when we think about nourishment, this hexagram talks about what do we put in? What do we nourish our lives with? Food, spiritual life, emotional life, relationship life, business life. What is the thing that we nourish our life with? And then the second part is, how do we nourish others with what comes out our mouth? So I've sometimes met people who are obsessed about what they eat, but the vial that comes out that mouth the other direction is quite astonishing. So don't be that person, okay? So this week, as the week transforms, support yourself with good nourishment in your teams and your businesses. This is a great time to find ways of releasing obstacles to communication, releasing obstacles to nourishment. Nourish your team. Be the mother bird that feeds your team this week. Make sure that they are being nourished. Perhaps there's a big undertaking and a lot of energy that's required for your team. Just be conscious. Focus on nourishment. Focus on how we're supported, how we communicate, how we teach, how we inspire, how we share, how we uplift, how we use words. Be very careful this week of how we use words, because people around us need nourishment. They don't need criticism. So let's work with nourishing each other this week. Pay attention to how you're nourishing yourself. Make sure you're putting back in what you're exuding in energy. Give yourself the time and space. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's just doing something that you love doing, a hobby or something. But really just nourish yourself on every level possible this week, and of course the people around you. So lots for us to focus on this week. A reminder, the March giveaway is live. You'll find the link below in the video description or in the show notes, depending which version you are using. And go and pop in your question. Our next video will be the first winner of the giveaway, and that person's video will be shared shortly, so you start to get to see the I Ching in action on an individual, personalized level, which is really how it makes a meaningful, wonderful difference to our lives. And if you had not yet seen my big announcement, I'm very excited to share that I was inspired to start creating I Ching inspired meditations to help support us with working with change and working with this whole process of flow. So if you go along to the Insight Timer app, which is a free meditation app that I absolutely love, you will find the meditation on there. The first one's called Flowing with Change, and I will link it below if you'd like to go and experience that meditation. Be lovely to hear your feedback as well. Right, so a busy week, lots for us to do. Have an awesome one, and we'll see you soon at our next episode. Thank you.